Alright, so with the World Championships over and the meta kind of being shaped around a big three kind of decks. The big three right now being the Gholdengo, the Dragapult, and the Gardevoir. Dragapult has multiple variations, and so does Gholdengo. I think the only real way to play Gardevoir is probably going to be just straight Gardevoir, as it's just the best way to play it, right? There's the Jellicent, I know it was played by Henry Chow's testing group, but I don't think it has any like merit to it over the straight Gardevoir. I haven't done too much digging into that right now, but I think for now that is going to be the main decks that the format is kind of built around. A big takeaway from the event is that Raging Bolt is still Raging Bolt and can still do well, and Grimmsnarl was clearly a fraud that was unable to put Gardevoir on Hate Watch. Instead, it just fell off. Like, you can see the share went from like if we like put the grouping on, then we see Gholdengo at 24%, Dragapult at basically at 24% as well, and then half of that was Gardevoir and then Raging Bolt, and then half of that was Charizard and Marnie's Grimmsnarl. There was actually more Marnie's Grimmsnarl. I mean, there was actually more Charizard than there was Marnie's Grimmsnarl at the event, which was kind of crazy. And then Flareon also was up there being played quite a lot. Shout out the dog box lovers and enjoys, and yeah. And then everything else is kind of... Something else that kind of popped up was Terrabox. There was actually, like, look, there's only 1% share of Terrabox, but honestly, that's more than I thought they'd be. There was a specific group of players playing Terrabox. It was, Joshua Frink, Patrick, Blake Ray, and Alex Szymanski. I think that was the group. I think the others were all kind of, like, on their own. But yeah, and then Alex Szymanski carried that flag into day 2, finishing top 32 with, Terrabox. Alright, but moving back onto today's video topic, Dragapult. So, I think the main, like, one of my main takeaways was that Dragapult's not going anywhere. I think we all knew going into the event that Dragapult Dusknoir was going to be a very big deck because it takes some decent matchup spreads, and I don't know if we can, yeah, we can check the matchups, right? It takes some decent matchup spreads, but I think it showed that this time that the matchup spread isn't as good as we might have thought. The Gholdengo matchup was 35%. So we can take a look at the matchup spread online compared to at Worlds and just see how different it was. So if we take a look at online, the matchup for the Gholdengo matchup was 46%. It was 50-50, right? It wasn't that bad. Gardevoir was 44, also like fairly 50-50-ish. It was like kind of, it can go either way. But if we take a look at it at Worlds, the Gardevoir matchup is fairly similar, but the Gholdengo matchup dropped by about 10%. It went from 45%. Wait, I need to use this side. It went from 45% down to 35%. That is a major jump, right? That is a major jump. It was actually 11% of the win rate going down. So that matchup is not as good as we thought it was, right, for the Dragapult players. And that kind of screwed Dragapult because Gholdengo was the most played deck in the room. And then as for other matchups, like it kind of, you know, Charizard, Pidgeot, 80% being favored, like 1 out of 5 games, Charizard is winning one of those games. One of those games. That is insane to me. And then we can take a look at Grimmsnarl Frost as being 50-50, Flareon Noctowl being favored in favor of Dragapult, Straight Pult still not favored, being 45% win rate, Joltik Box being favored, Dragapult Charizard being favored. Zoroark was a deck that surprised everybody. Not a lot of Zoroarks being played at all, actually. And yeah, actually, let's take a look at how many Zoroarks there were at the event. There was 17 Zoroarks. There was actually a decent amount of Zoroarks. And they did really well. Like, they have one of the highest win percentages, 51.71. That's because a lot of the players kind of carried that deck. Like, there were some really good players. There were some really good conversions on Zoroark as well. Okay, maybe it wasn't that good. There was 3 in day 2, but those 3 went really far. Like, I'm pretty sure, yeah, if we take a look, it was top 6, 2 and top 8, which is crazy for Zoroark, right? Absolutely crazy. And it was some really good players as well, like Marco Cifuentes, the brother of our world champion last year, and also Mateusz Laszkiewicz, who also got top 8 with it. So some really good players on on the deck. Christian Labella, Liam Halliburton as well, just to name a few. But yeah, so Zoroark had a really good showing. Definitely not one that we expected going into the event, but it does make sense if you look at it. It has some pretty good matchups, such as the Dragapult matchup, such as the Gardevoir matchup, and the Goldengo matchup isn't terrible depending on what your techs are. I know a few people were taking in the Fighting Pond. I know a few people were taking in the what's that thing called? The Toadscruel to fix that matchup. But yeah, so not a bad day in the office for Zoroark enjoys. But back to Dragapult. We see a lot of good placements. Obviously, he got second. Justin Nudolf, congrats to him. He got second place, just coming short to the devil itself, Gardevoir EX, in finals. And then the rest were like, yeah, quite a bunch in top 32, quite a bunch in top 128. But yeah, so the deck did pretty well for itself. And going back to the matchup spread, yeah, it has some pretty good matchups. Against Spidops controlled went 6-0, against Roaring Moon Dunsparce that went 4-0. This is obviously 3 separate games that happened. Is it actually? No, I don't think it's 3 separate games that happened. No, that's just... It just went 6-0 against those decks. Pidgeot control actually went negative against. We can sort it by the win rate, and we can see that Charizard Pidgeot was super favored, Crustle was super favored, Charizard Dragapult super favored, Miraidon, Farigiraf, I mean, these just weren't really played much. So Goldengo Joltik was pretty favored, and I think that's something that we need to take note going into the future formats. This deck is also going to be played more. We saw it win the senior division, denying Gabriel Fernandez the perfect season, faltering at the final game. So sad there. But yeah, so it did take that division, and also it has a pretty bad matchup into Dragapult Dusknoir. And I think Dragapult Dusknoir is going to be one of the really big decks moving into the next format. If you guys don't have your Dusknoirs and stuff, go and get them now. I think it is going to be a really... Even though, look, you might be thinking, oh, but what about the Psyduck? Psyduck's going to ruin the deck. Psyduck hurts, sure, but it's not as big as people make it out to be. Like, sure, like Manaphy or like Bench Barriers hurt Terrabox, but that's because Terrabox can't do anything without that. Dragapult is still Dragapult, right? It is still Dragapult even without the bombs. And it's not like you can't just, delete the Psyduck. It's not like you can't just put 6 damage counters on the Psyduck, next turn Hawlucha, ping the Psyduck, and then now you have free reign of your bombs again. But yes, I think people are overreacting on that, and also with the Megas coming out, I think it's going to be a really good day for Dragapult, being able to just like do 130 into a Terra, into a Mega, and then slap a Defiance Band on, and now you're doing like, you're doing 360. And that's killing a lot of relevant Megas. I'm pretty sure Dragapult is 360. I'm pretty sure the Guardi is 360. A lot of like the smaller ones are also like 360 and below. The only one it's not really killing, I think, is the Venusaur. But like Venusaur, you're probably gonna lose that matchup anyway. But yeah, so that's what's happening in the Dusknoir version of the matchup of the deck. I want to take a look at the version that I enjoy the most, and that is the Straight Pult. So Straight Pult, if we take a look at the matchup spreads, it takes, unfortunately, an abysmal matchup to Gardevoir. It went 10-17 against Gardevoir with a 36% win rate. I mean, yeah, that's fair. Like, the deck just does not have a good day against Gardevoir, especially the World Championships, when the Gardevoir players aren't going to be making those same stupid mistakes. But it also has a really good matchup against your Dragapult Charizard. It has a great matchup into... I don't know why Spidops keeps showing up here. It has a good matchup into like your Flareon Noctowl, your Charizard Dragapult. I don't know how it beat Wallstall, which is insane to me, probably with the Fighting Pond and stuff, but it also has a pretty decent matchup against the Raging Bolt, and also has actually a favored matchup against Goldengo, which is crazy, right? But that's because a lot of the straight Pults they were playing, a lot of techs for the Goldengo, because you had to be teched for the Goldengo, right? If you weren't teching for Goldengo, you were not going to be winning Worlds. Something that is insane here is that it has a negative win rate against Charizard Pidgeot. We went from an 80% win rate to a negative win rate against Charizard Pidgeot. And I think that just shows how important the bombs are in that matchup. I think it is any deck that's going to run the Psyduck, it's going to be Charizard, just because of how abysmal the bomb Pult matchup is for it. So yeah. I don't think that Straight Pult has a bad day into Charizard Pidgeot. Realistically, I think it's still a fairly fine matchup. But I think a lot of the techs took away from this matchup in order to prepare for stuff like the Goldengos of the world and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I really do think that it's fine. It's not that bad, but yeah, I think Dragapult has a lot of potential moving forward. I think it has a pretty good matchup spread going forward as well, depending on the techs. Obviously, it's like one of those decks where you can say it has a good matchup spread, but it honestly depends on the techs. Like if you're not gonna tech for Goldengo, then this 54% win rate that you had is gonna plummet way down. Same as like other matchups like Grimmsnarl Frostlass. If you don't tech for this matchup, it's gonna go way down. God of War you can't really fix, unfortunately. But yeah. So straight Dragapult is looking good. Bomb Dragapult is looking probably even better. But I will probably be sticking with straight Dragapult. I think the deck is just more consistent, and I think as we see more Bomb Pults going up, I think more people are going to be taking for that matchup, for the bombs and stuff. They're going to be playing the Psyducks and stuff. Then we can just play straight Pult and just kind of like, now they're playing cards that are dead against our deck, and now we can just tech for those decks that would be teching against the bombs. For like Charizard, we can be taking stuff against Charizard, we can be playing the Fighting Pond to make sure that Charizard doesn't have a good day into us, and then we can be playing or taking against other things as well, instead of just that. Like for the Goldengos as well, Charizard, that falls under the same category with the Fighting Pond, whereas the Bomb Pult has a lot less spaces. Like if you think about it, at minimum you're playing a 2-2-1 line of Dusk Noir, so that's already 5 spaces in the deck that like are lost. Whereas now if you take out those 5 spaces, you can take in like 2 Jamming Tower, you can take in the Fighting Ogerpon, you can take in another Turo, you can take in the Defiance Band if you want later on. So like that just opens up 5 spots, and then on top of that you also don't have to run stuff like Rare Candy. Like we see a lot of these lists playing Rare Candy. Now you can take out that Rare Candy and go back to a much more slower, more consistent build. And that's the thing, like you have kind of like 6 to, I guess, 8 places to play around with after you take the bomb package out. And for a deck like Dragapult, that's a lot of space, right? Like that's 10%, like plus minus 10% of your deck is back to being open, so you can kind of run whatever you want in that, and whatever's good in the meta, now that's 10% of your deck being able to be teched for other stuff, or just add more consistency cards, because that's another thing. Why, like, you'll think, okay, but why does Dragapult have a good win rate against Bomb Dragapult? Well, it's because consistency, right? Your board is usually just more Dragapults, right? I mean, more Dracloaks, because Dragapult Dusk Noir has to focus on getting their bombs, and they have more moving parts, whereas for you, it's like very consistent, very slow burn, but it's gonna work. It always works. That's why the deck is so good, because it always works. And any deck that has a built-in draw engine, such as Dragapult, it's never just going to disappear. There's never going to be a day where Dragapult just isn't played at a tournament. Like, I can almost guarantee for every single tournament, there will be a Dragapult. Whether it's a straight Pult, whether it's a Noir Pult, the deck is so, like, consistent. I don't know the difference between Dragapult Charizard and Charizard Dragapult, but apparently those are 2 separate decks. But yeah, so there's going to be Dragapult until the day it rotates. It's just going to be one of those decks. So prepare your Dragapults, but yeah. So Dragapult is not going anywhere. And this is more of like a video just talking about the future of Dragapult and what I think. But yeah, alright. We can take a look at some of the deck lists that did really well. Such as, I mean, you've all seen Justin's. One that I really liked was Kato Arise. I really like this straight Pult list. So we had Sudowoodo, which is really nice because now, for example, you can gust up Fan Rotom or Noctowl, and you can trap that doing 0 damage. I mean, it's infinitely stuck there until they move it. Whereas there was times like with Maractus where you'd gust up Fan Rotom and that would be stuck inactive, but you're going to kill it eventually, and you don't want to kill it. Sometimes you literally have no way to win other than by just trapping stuff, and this helps that scenario. And then obviously you have your really thick 4/4/3 Dragapult line, you have a thicker Munkidori line because you're going to want to fling shit back, you have thick Badoos because you always want to be using Badoo in the beginning of the game. Then you have the core 3, now joined by a 4th basic EX, is hit the tower, that being Cornerstone Ogerpon. Cornerstone Ogerpon is the only reason this deck kind of has an okay matchup against Goldengo, and now it also helps against Zoroark, also helps against Charizard, and I think Cornerstone Ogerpon is not going anywhere in this deck. I think pick up your copies of Cornerstone Ogerpon, because as the format is shaping out, this is a great card to have in the deck. And also with the Megas coming out, if we take a look at Mega Venusaur, this might be your only way to beat Mega Venusaur, right? So yeah, Maractus is still good because of the ability as well, being able to just die, and like you can force them to kill it, and then it puts 6 damage counters, and now you can play around with 6 damage, you can gust around it, kill whatever killed that, plus something else on the bench. But I think Maractus is less important than Sudowoodo right now. I think Sudowoodo has more potential than the Maractus in the trapping. Something else that's quite cool that I really liked was the Super Rod plus Palpad inclusion. It just helps with those awkward research starts or awkward Ultra Balls. If you guys watch stream today, you'd know that I have a lot of awkward Ultra Balls, unfortunately, and that just really helps against those kinds of things. It helps you prevent being in a really difficult situation where you have to you open research, you have to get rid of double boss plus 1 counter catcher, and now you'll be thinking, oh, but having 3 boss seems pretty bad. Well, now you have Palpad, so essentially you can basically be playing 5 boss in a way, because you can get rid of 2 and then get them right back into the deck. So Palpad is really nice, and I also like the Super Rod. We are only playing 1 stretcher. That is something that I'm not too sure of. The only reason the Rod is included is because essentially instead of playing 3 stretchers, you can cut down to 1 stretcher and 1 rod, and then still have 1 space open, and still have similar levels of recovery. So it just opens up a spot for the Palpad, instead of having the 3 singular night stretches. So obviously individually power-wise, the 3 night stretches is obviously stronger than the one night stretcher Super Rod, but the 1/1 night stretcher Super Rod actually gives you more recovery than the 3 stretches, and it also opens up a free slot, right? Meaning now you can add stuff like that Palpad, or your Ogerpon, or your Sudowoodo, so it just opens up a lot of space. As for energy counts, it's still very similar, if not identical, to what was being run beforehand, with the 4 Luminous, the 3 Basic, and the 1 Neo Upper. A lot of these basic decks, or a lot of these Dragapult decks have been swapping actually to 3 Psychic Energy and just cutting the Fire completely, because the Fire is only ever good for the Dragapult, and you're already playing 3 basic energy, you're playing Hilda, so it's not that big of a deal. It's so rare for you to attack with a basic and 2 basic energy on the Dragapult, and the 3 psychic makes more sense, because in the odd chance you have to attack with not Monkey Dory, in the odd chance you have to attack with Latias, and also attacking with Latias is not a bad thing. It just makes more sense to have that 3rd psychic energy, and it honestly doesn't really matter. It just doesn't. But yeah, another thing you might be thinking is oh, the penny. Why the penny? Well, because now you can essentially just reuse Monkey Dories. You can heal up stuff that takes damage on the bench and just put it back down without having to discard items or stuff from it. For example, if you have an energy attached to an Ursaluna and they swing into the Ursaluna, now you can pick up that Ursaluna and put it right back down with the energy and not have to waste an energy and have to night stretch for an energy, or sometimes energies are lacking, so you might just be able to get a free energy like that. Also, you can reuse Monkey Dories. For example, if you have 2 Monkey Dories on the bench, and then you have something with 90 damage on it, you can move with both of these Monkey Dories 60 off of it, right? But it's still damaged by 30, and then let's say you just need an extra 30 damage to win the game, then you can penny up the Monkey Dory with the Luminous, re-bench the Monkey, attach the Luminous again for your turn, and then move that last 30 as well with that 60, and now you're essentially getting a plus 90 instead of the plus 60, and all you had to pay for that was the penny plus manual attachment, and you didn't even have to find energy because energy was already on the Monkey Dory. It's also nice to just be able to just another out to reuse the whole Lucha. And then the Toro is now mainly for all those things that we just mentioned, except for the fact that you can't really reuse Monkey Dory as often as you like with that. Same with the Ursaluna, and same with other cards like the Sudowoodo. For example, if they swing into the Sudowoodo with a Rotom, with a Knockdown, it's going to die in next turn. So essentially now you can get a Monkey Dory up, you can move 30, pick up the Sudowoodo, and then you can next turn bench another Monkey Dory, and you can basically just have infinite heal on the Sudowoodo without worrying for it to die. So that's something else that lets you just infinitely trap stuff while just spawning damage, which is quite cool. And then also the Toro just means, for example, if you have energy, if it's a slow game, you've set up multiple Dracloaks on your bench, you have your Dragapult inactive, it takes a swing from something, you can now pick that guy up and just bring in another guy and attack with the healthy Depult and just deny prize cards like that. But yeah, if you guys enjoy the video, smash like, smash subscribe. We're so close to 3k. I think we're like 50 subs off, so if you're not subscribed, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah. Peace.